I don't think that even in Silicon Valley, where we operate most of the time, people don't know how to validate the ideas properly.
Welcome, everybody, to Learn With Lowell. Today, we're joined with Jozef. He's a founding partner of SUDOLABS, Forbes under 30, Cambridge Law graduate, and runs a podcast called The Startup Huddle. Jozef, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, and looking forward to it.
Yes. All right. So, starting with SUDOLABS, I looked through the whole website and tried my best to understand what you guys get up to, and I saw some testimonials, and I always like picking apart testimonials because like the whole point of them is to represent something. So Easy Tenda, and maybe that's their name, or maybe I'm butchering that as well, states one of the values you guys offer, like a series of values, is the efficiency and high-level strategy, product upkeep, and user-driven iterations. Now, for most people, those are just buzzwords. They don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So starting with high-value strategy, can you talk about what you did for Easy Tenda? Or if you're under like an NDA type situation, can we like generalize what you do in a high-level strategy? Yeah, for those type of people.
For sure. So we are essentially, or we've been for a long time, an end-to-end product building agency for startups. And what Easy Tenda meant by high-level strategy and the iterations, they meant that not only we offer engineering capabilities, meaning software development of mobile and web applications, but our second department is like a product department or product management, and where what we do there is that we are very good in identifying what the target user of your product wants, what they like, and then therefore we are able to craft the product to the likes of the end user. So most of the tech products in the world today, the reason why they fail is because they are they shouldn't even get on the market in the first place. And founder has an idea of what they want to build, and a problem they want to solve, but they do not do their due diligence properly, or what we call product discovery properly, in actually understanding the target user. So for Easy Tenda, for example, they are working in a very specific space. It's a drinks industry, where the problem they were trying to solve was how to make sure that the bars get the best offers from the drink producers. And it's a completely new thing. They're essentially creating a two-sided marketplace between the bars and the drink producers. And we really help them identify what the bars want, what the drink producers want, how to craft the whole product in a way where both parties will be happy to use it.
So high-level strategy in that situation is essentially talking to everyone and kind of having a roadmap to execute on their vision. Like that's high-level strategy. You start on a high level and you talk to all the people. I'm trying to operationalize what you just said for people out there who maybe they're thinking of making a startup, or maybe they're just trying to understand these types of things, and all they get are like the headlines of stuff. So the operationalizing of what you said would be, like interviews that you talk to probably bartenders, you talk to juice producers, etc. To craft that.
Exactly. And then also, I think that this is already on the execution of the user research or product discovery, but on a high level, we are very well able from like the tens of, if not hundreds of products that we have built already to, very quickly define what are the steps when releasing a product. So, we are always trying to optimize on the speed and on the efficiency and on the cost. Many founders do not know how to start, or they start from the bad angle or from the wrong angle. So we have like a clear process of how to validate your idea, validate the key assumptions, and then, start executing on that. Starting executing on that, meaning that you build your first prototype or your MVP, and then you continue iterating until the product is live and has the first users.
Do you have a framework for thinking when it comes to testing out ideas? I think a lot of people, they hear ideas are worthless, execution is everything. And so I know a number of the listeners have commented that I have an idea, but like, how do I translate that? So like, how can people be critical of their ideas to know if they're good ones?
I think you're completely right in saying that everyone has ideas, but it's very hard to execute on them. And as I said before, I don't think that even in Silicon Valley, where we operate most of the time, people don't know how to validate the ideas properly. And we have the framework. It really depends on the product and on the problem. But essentially, all the time, what you are trying to do is to firstly identify the key risks of your product. And the risks might be, there is a value risk. This is always the biggest one. What we mean by value risk is, are you actually adding value to the target user and how to add value to the target user. Is their problem a real problem, right? That's the biggest assumption that you need to validate all the time. Then there are other risks. For very complicated products, there is a usability risk, for example. So if you are building for old generation, you need to build your product in a way that the old generation will be able to use that, not that tech savvy, or there is feasibility risk as well. For example, in my previous company that I was doing, we were trying to predict legal case outcomes. Now, obviously, it's a completely new thing that we are getting to the market, and we were doing it using AI and using machine learning models. So there are also ways how to validate whether even the problem you're trying to solve is solvable. And we have a particular framework, again, because we have very senior product managers in our company, and we have very senior CPO, and we have built a lot of products. We apply that framework, and then and that works. Seems to be working for most of the companies.
Yeah. If we were to apply and kind of tease out that framework as it relates to SUDOLABS, because I always feel like if you're talking about a client or a customer, I always feel like, oh, there's probably NDAs in there. I don't want to get you in trouble, because like the whole idea is like people trust you. So can we talk about the framework as it relates to SUDOLABS, like just a little bit more about like what that looks like on the inside?
Again, so it's not I cannot give you like a clear-cut process for every product, but you always start. So the first thing and the most important thing is that I think for every new product is that you should iterate fast and deliver quickly. So what I mean by that is that we always try to, again, we don't only work with like very early stage companies. Our target is between pre-seed to Series A. However, so we work with many Series A companies, and we start working with them at the Series A stage. However, like anything new that you are trying to build, you should release the MVP within 10 to 12 weeks. So we are talking 2 to 3 months. That's the key. And the reason that behind that is that, everything, unless you start selling the product or show the product to your target users and try to get them on the platform, everything is just an assumption. And you get those assumptions at least 50% of the time wrong. So if you keep building something for half a year and then you start selling it on the market, there's a very high chance that you have probably wasted a lot of money on engineering. So the first thing is speed, how you get to the market. Then the second thing is how you even craft the MVP. And then the MVP always needs to come at the very simple version, where you're trying to really just figure out whether your core assumption is correct. Core assumption meaning the key problem that you are solving, whether the value risk or the feasibility risk, right? Normally it's the value risk. Is the problem that I'm solving really a problem for the target user, and can I solve it? There you can apply many techniques. You can apply, for example, the very basic ones are user interviews, meaning that you have a structured way how you talk to the target users. And you don't even have to talk to that many users. That is actually quite surprising for many people. From our experience, and also, it's becoming a science, product management by itself, although it's not been here for a very long time. After like 5 to 10 users of the same category, if you really define very well your target user, you'll see that they have the same replies, they have the same problems, they have the same worries. So if you properly define your target persona or user persona, after 5 to 10 interviews, you already have a good idea. Then there are other ways how you can do it. For example, you can create what we call like fake door tests. Fake door is essentially where you pretend that you have a product that exists, but it doesn't exist yet, and then you run campaigns to be able to assume the interest, and by interest you can then assume how important the product is for the people. So let's say that you have 4 ideas about the product, you create 4 fake websites and you run traffic on them, and then you see how people interact with the website and how much traffic it was able to generate. There'll be a fake door. Or what else? For example, you can also validate those things using like local no-code prototypes. So for example, for EasyTenda, what we did is that we created in 3 weeks, using Bubble. For the audience, it's a tool for creating a low-code tool where you can very quickly create a simple app. That it does, it can look good, but the looks there are not very important. and we brought their users from both the bars, 10 bars, 10 drink producers, and we tried to recreate the experience of actually them making business together on the platform. And we learned a lot by observing those users. So there are various ways how you can do it, but the key is to focus on the user, focus on the key assumptions, and try to move quickly. So you don't spend, months of researching something, because you're probably wrong until you start talking to the target user.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And you touched on the last piece, a question I was going to ask for you, which is that if there's like a no code in the beginning before I think the framework of shipping 10 to 12 weeks, like on a maximum, I think makes sense. I think Y Combinator, for instance, likes to see if you can get something done in like 4 to 6 weeks, because the tighter the interval, I think everyone's happier. Because what you're saying is very much correct. The sooner you can get people to touch it, the happier you can be. But I was going to ask you, is there no code? Is there type of options you do just to like wireframe it to show people? Because like if you're gonna do something, the sooner you can have someone touch it. But you showed that with Bubble. I think Figma's been pretty cool on that as well, in terms of just like you can show people the designs. But I haven't done Bubble before, but it sounds like they can actually interact with it a little bit, so you can even get a little bit more of like where they're going, where they're getting lost, what's confusing to them. So you get all that textual information, so that when you do pull the team together, decipher that down into sprints, whatever. If you use Scrum Agile, you can then push forward with a lot more confidence, and then even update them as it goes. Like, hey, look, based on your feedback. And users, I found like users, when you say, hey, you said something and we built like this thing because of it, they love that, and they're even more likely to convert over. So I'll have to check out Bubble after this this episode, because
you're very right there. I think that the difference between Figma and Bubble or Airtable, for example, there will be another tool. The main difference is that in Figma, what you can build is that's why I made what I call like a functional prototype. So in Figma, you cannot build a functional prototype. It's gonna just be like design prototype where you can just click, so you allow the users to be able to sort of feel the screens of how the designs will look like, what's going to be the user flow, essentially the flow of the user in the product, but nothing is really happening on the back end. Whereas if you create something via Bubble, it's a fully functional product where you can get users, they can pay for your services. There's real stuff happening, real data storing, and it's a real product. However, the problem with Bubble is that the reason why still most of the apps are custom built, custom meaning that you essentially write code from scratch and you don't use any of those tools, is that at some point of scale, it's hard to adapt. It's very hard to mold, and therefore, like most of those prototypes are then thrown away. So for many clients, the question is, how confident we are that we want to invest more, but then we don't have to throw away everything. Whereas with Bubble, we'll have to recreate everything. So that sort of portion of money and time we invested is going to go all away.
Have you looked into Figma Dev? I've been I agree with you on the limitation of Figma, in that product developers love it though. Apparently, I was working with a product developer and he was just like, I'll only use Figma, but then it's like you design something nice, but then you have to like painstakingly replicate it. But Figma Dev, like they code, like you click a button, it makes a code for everything, so you can like pop it in to like whatever you use in your IDE, and then it's a little easier. Have you experimented with that? Because that seems like it might be a good bridge between the problems you're having, like essentially a no code solution, easily for people to look at, but also kind of saving time and not wasting those like 3 to 6 weeks with a Bubble MVP.
Yeah. I think you might be right. I'm not sure what our product department is using right now, but like for the latest sort of low code that we've been doing, which was like 2 weeks ago, we still use Bubble. But I'll definitely recommend it and we'll check it out.
Yeah, Figma Dev. I've been pretty nerdy about it. I'm actually working through just experimenting with stuff just to see if it's as good as they say. But it does seem like it's like the best of Figma, and then it sounds like maybe it'll be like Bubble too. If you guys use it and it works great, let me know, because I'm still testing it as well.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And then so fake door test. I've read about this as well. I have tried doing them, but Google usually gets pretty testy if you do it. How do you get around the fact that Google generally doesn't like a landing page with like an email sign up, for instance, to validate people's interest?
I mean, that's obviously then the separate problem by itself. When Google sees a website that has been just released, and then they know what you're doing. But
Yeah.
but you can use fake door test even on the existing product. So many times you can just, for example, let's say that you have a fully functional e-commerce that has thousands of users, and you want to try a new payment method. So, and you want to see whether people would be interested. Now, with this, Google probably wouldn't have a problem, and you can still track on the website, how many people are clicking on it and how people are interacting with it. So you can use it for like trying completely new stuff, but also, within your existing product, you can create those sort of fake new potential functionalities, and you can then track them.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, Google's if you have something there, it seems like they're happy, but I guess I did the dumber things, which just had a sign up page, and they yelled at me. And then I've never done it since. So maybe I'll try with like a new feature aspect. I'm like, oh, there's other things there. Maybe they'll like it. So another thing that the Tenda people said is that you do product upkeep. So not only do you develop things, but I imagine there's like they pay a subscription or something, and you just keep the site updated and add features and stuff. So you're basically the external dev team permanently with the team, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so we have started actually from the very beginning only as a dev agency, and then we're adding all those different departments. But I can also talk about the new, very surprisingly AI department that we got, and we started focusing on a completely new market segment. But in terms of the engineering, it was our bread and butter. It was coming from the very start, like core company culture. And the way how it works is that, I would say that 30-40% of the clients, we are their only development team in the beginning. Then they keep hiring, but we stay within the organization. For the rest, we already come to the company that has fully fledged engineering teams, but they are working on some new feature or something that they deem to be non-core of their product, or they are really looking for flexibility. So what is very good about agencies is that it's very hard in the startup world to predict what will happen. You might soon realize that something that you've been working on for a long time isn't working. Therefore, you need a pivot, and for that pivot, you need completely different people to work on it. You need to double down on data engineers, and you don't need front end people, for example. Now, agencies allow you the flexibility because you can upscale and downscale the teams as you want. So I think this is the main selling point. For EasyTenda, what we are doing, and that answers first part of your question. So how do we interact with internal teams, and what is our engineering doing there? It's essentially a fully dedicated engineering team, but we tend to work in different sort of setups with different clients. What they mean by Upkeep is that we are their only engineering team for a long time, and a good product building strategy never stops at the release of the product, because the more features you release, the more you learn about the users, and the more you should tweak the product so that they like it. And the market is changing constantly, right? So it's essentially a continuous iteration on the feedback that you are gathering from the users. And normally what happens is that we build the MVP, and then again, the team stays there. We even help companies hire their own CTO or their own engineers and create like a separate team. But we keep iterating, and there is a team that is constantly working on it as if it was an internal team.
So I have heard of agency. I've seen people use them before. Usually I just build a team within and then scale it from there. But I do see your point of shifting a lot, because if you the risk reward of like pivoting is that, oh, you pivot to something good, but you just probably like pissed off everyone who works for you a little bit, especially if you're like firing their friends to like account for like the cash flow burn and stuff like that. So I see that benefit, but I have heard the downside of sometimes working with agencies is that some people put money into them and then they get nothing out. So that I'm curious, how do you set it up so that, what does it look like if I like paid you guys like $100,000? I don't know what your pays are, whatever, but do you guys do like weekly deliverables or like their updates, that type of thing, so people know it's being tracked? Because I think when I was researching this type of concept in preparation for this interview, the big thing that people were concerned about is like getting burnt in this thing. So, which is kind of an opportunity in of itself. If you guys have just historically shown that you can perform and etc., like that immediately separates you from 90% of people that suck and just take people's money and run. But then, so how does it look like? What does it look like working together as you build something? Like for me as an example, or like someone else like that?
Yeah. I think you're completely right, and I don't want to sound like, I mean, listeners might not believe it that we are different, but I really believe that the whole industry is extremely in a very, very bad health. I mean, it's, I think, one of the worst performing even in industries in terms of the client satisfaction, generally speaking, because of the COVID and because of the the rise of tech generally in the world, but mostly in the US. There's so many companies that were created, and especially people coming from the East, cutting down the prices of the development, and many agencies on the market. I really would say that at least half, if not more, of the providers it's like half scam almost. Almost everyone that I talked to that had several that had more experience with agencies, they had some very, very bad experience, exactly as you described, that they paid and they didn't get anything in return, or it was a very bad communication between the two parties, or people stole their ideas, stuff like that. So yes, it's right. It is a risk, and that's why the best providers tend to like outperform everyone else. For example, we are getting most of our leads still from as recommendations from our current clients. So I would say that at least 50% of the business is coming as introductions from the current clients. We even were able to start collaborations with the best VC funds in Silicon Valley. We are a preferred partner of A16s and Bessemer Ventures. We have several companies that were funded, for example, we work with quite a few companies that were funded by Lightspeed Ventures. So we always try to get that badge of credibility by simply working with the credible partners. And we know that once, if we fuck it up once, they'll stop working in us, and it will very soon like spread. So I believe that we are there are different. There is a clear difference in the game. Now, how it should work with a good agency? I'm not saying only with us, but generally speaking, with a good agency, you should always have in the contract that you own all the IP that has been built, because it has been built for you once you paid for it. That's point one. Point two, you need to the agency needs to have a very good process of communication and of collaboration. For example, the best standard is that the company is paid based on the hours, because that's it's called time and material, and you pay the agency based on the hours. Now, however, they need to prove to you how much hours they spend, and that those hours that they spend on the particular epic or a feature is actually how to say it. It's it's not a scam. They actually spend those hours there. How we do it is that we have a very, very transparent way of tracking hours. So you see essentially every person to minutes how much they spend on during their day on what. And then we have client can join all our ceremonies, or we have the ceremonies together, even daily stand-ups together with the internal teams, and once or bi-weekly, depending on what the product we are building, we have demos as well. We are together on Slack. There is a dedicated product manager that is always available on most of the projects. So it's mostly about the process, I would say, and about the trust. It's hard to build the trust. That's why we have it's very hard to build a company in that space. It's very hard to get off the ground before you start getting those referrals. So yeah.
I think for anyone listening in who's like, I don't know if I would, use a service like yours, like what's an example of someone who's done that and been successful? You just mentioned a huge one, which is Slack. Slack originally, I think looked like, I don't remember what it originally looked like, but they said essentially it looked like crap, but they went to a company or a group like yours, and they built out essentially all the majority of the features and how Slack looks today, like that very professional, fun. I used Microsoft Office for or whatever the heck the one that's like Slack for 10 minutes. I hated it, so then I went back to Slack. But there's a huge example of people exporting that production, like the expertise to people like yourself, which also is like an average dev person or an engineer maybe has over 10 years, maybe 4 or 5 different companies that they work on, depending how often they transition. Potentially in a year, you guys are doing 4 or 5 a year. So you're constantly you have your own internal iteration to improve your guys' selves better than the average person from an internal dev standpoint. So there's an intrinsic value to someone who's constantly fighting those battles. You know what I mean? And Slack's a good example of a group that partnered effectively and then benefited from it.
I would agree. Like almost every bigger company is using outsourced dev. Not many are using it from the very beginning, but almost any bigger scale up is using outsourced dev. Again, for the reasons of flexibility, also for the reasons of speed. We make sure that we have the team ready within a month, like 5 people team that can like completely build something new in like those 2 months. And also, you made a good point about expertise. So yes, a usual dev. Uh, if they are if they are not working for an agency, they will go when they are senior through like 4 companies. We have 100 full-time people right now, and we are building like 10 to 20 products every year at least. What it means in practice is that if you can then accumulate that knowledge very well, meaning that every project is documented, but mostly like on the process side of things and on the key learnings, key failures. Sometimes we already know how to solve certain problems because we have already been in that industry. We know the industry. And if you have very similar to what like McKinsey or BCG, those management consulting companies have, they have case studies. We built a case study out of every project. And therefore, when we are dealing with a similar problem, essentially we allow every engineer to access that database, and that's why we are quicker, and that's why we are better, because you are working not only with that engineer's experience, but with the accumulated knowledge of all the other projects that we have done before.
Oh, that's really smart. I usually make like an in-house wiki for the same purpose, but I've never heard of anyone making a case study of each project, which makes a lot of sense, and wish I could get access to it all because I love learning. But have you thought about as like a lead gen, like a marketing thing, potentially anonymizing the information and like talking about them somewhere, so then more people see like, oh wow, these guys do all the right things, they check those boxes. So potentially you could take the in-house resource learning tool and use it as like lead gen if you anonymize the data.
Yes. Not there yet. Content marketing hasn't been our strongest, I would say, pillar of sales, but yeah, we're working on it. Obviously, there is a lot of confidentiality many times involved, and we also never reuse like stuff that would be against the, it's this whole business is about your essentially your credibility. So
Yeah.
again, trying to find the right balance there.
Yeah, no, it just sounds really smart. I noted that on your career page as well, but it sounds much cooler hearing it from you. I'll have to go back through and see if there's anything missing because like it sounded really powerful coming from you. The in-house learning tools, the case studies in particular. I try reading Harvard's ones every now and again, but they always like paywall them, so then I find them through other means, and because I'm not paying those prices because I just want to learn. And they have like a massive endowment, so I don't feel as bad. But that sounds an amazing benefit. I imagine. So the difference between when I hire for people, it's usually like they want to be a part of a certain mission, and then they're really excited, like jazz for that. But I imagine one of the things that you look for when you look for hiring on the team are people who like are really hungry to try a lot of different things. Like they hunger for that continual intellectual challenge. As like qualifications that you look for to separate like an average person applying versus someone who's like really going to fit in with what you're working. That's a guess. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. That would be my guess. I don't know what your actual criterion for hiring people is.
So I think that, the very reason why we started the company in the first place, those 3.5 years ago, was that we felt like there is a great opportunity on the market, but mostly on the hiring market. So already what we were doing before, what we are doing right now, it's been going on for like 12 years or so. And now the market is shifting. It's becoming not a very good business. That's why we are shifting as well. And I can talk about it a little bit later. But in terms of the hiring, we are all the founders are from Slovakia, Central Europe, or Czech Republic. And we've been working as, I had the startup before in the UK. My co-founders were senior software engineers, or they had their own startups. And we know very well the environment in the Central Europe. And what appeared to be very apparent for us at that point in time was that there's a lot of tech talent. One thing that Central Europe in terms of education can do very well is like teaching like math, physics, computer science. Those are the 3 things that our education system has done well. The other things very badly. And there's a lot of engineers, but not that many great jobs for them, and not that many great startups. So unless you are lucky, you need to move from the country, and people don't want to move. And there's a lot of people outside, for example, in the US, working as like very good engineers, very good product managers, but they can't come back to set up their family, for example, because there's no job for them. So this was the idea, to be able to, if we decided that if we create a very good culture and work for the best companies, our market was always US. Like 9 out of 10 clients are startups in the US. And if we allow people to do really their job properly, then we'll be able to hire very easily. And that's what actually happened. And we also be able to retain people very easily. And now in terms of the hiring criteria, again, you need to have people that are, first of all, not assholes. They need to be able to be nice, good people. Those are the people that we prefer, that they can work together, that, just, spread positive energy. But secondly, people who are really keen to learn. It's so hard in the software industry to find like that particularly skilled people in that tech stack many times. Therefore, you hire somebody who is like very quick learner and eager to learn and eager to go beyond what is normally expected in a corporate job, let's say.
So I think there's this new thing in the US where people are always saying like, I act my wage or whatever. And I've been talking to people in agriculture, which is an entirely different related thing. They're trying to find a way to ensure people can be paid appropriately given the necessity of the work, which is they're having a similar problem, and like it's a labor issue. There's not enough people to do the jobs. And I suggest like, what if people get like a percentage or something? But whatever. How do you compensate or think about compensating people to keep them excited so that they keep going above and beyond?
That's a very good question, and so we are competing we are probably right now one of the most recognizable, if not the most recognizable brands in Slovakia and Czech Republic as well, to a certain extent. But still, because we are bootstrapped and we are no investment, bootstrap. It's also not a very good thing to get investment if you're an agency, if you're another product business. And there are a lot of US companies here that are essentially using the region as well as a source of cheap labor. And it's very easy for them to pay bigger salaries. So for a very long time, we've been mostly motivating people on the idea that they can really do their best and work, so do stuff properly, and work in an environment where they'll be happy about the outcomes, and they also can work for the best client. So for many people, it's a lot more exciting to work for a YC founder in the US and work with YC founder in the US than work at some backend of a bank where with 60 other developers scattered around the world. So that was our main selling point, and that's what people loved. Now we got to the point where we can actually pay the same, if not more, than the rest of the companies. Again, it's mostly about, you need to just find the right people that love the way the job that they do, and that they love to do the projects that they are on, and try to and they see the impact as well, because if you work as an engineer for startups, you can already see that something that you've built a week ago is already implemented and is in practice. So it's mostly about us just to choosing the right work and let people be themselves. And we are also thinking about other schemes, right? For example, revenue sharing or ESOP. We are not, revenue sharing will be there in place for sure. So certain percentage of what we earn will be shared to some extent for the employees as well. We're also thinking about ESOP. Again, it's not the best tool probably for the type of company that we are, and it's not typical in the industry. So still trying to find other ways how to motivate people is something that is actually on the table right now, and it's been on the table for a few months.
What is ESOP?
Employee stock options.
Okay, there you go. It's is this a new thing? And there's always new things coming out every day. I don't know if it was a type of cereal or whatever. I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff here that you get to do because you're in so many different areas. What's the stuff that you enjoy doing? What's the stuff that you get you excited now that you're at the point you start compensating people well? If there's it's kind of the nice part where it's if there's anything you hated, you could hire someone who loved that aspect, so you can just kind of focus on what you love and enjoy doing. So what is that love or aspects that you enjoy doing the most in terms of what you build?
I love building. So again, this is the second company, and I like the ability. With the bigger company, you have more impact on people's lives. You can like really make sure that people strive in your company. It's nice to be able to have impact, and it's also nice to be able to like steer that ship. That's very important for me. Although I'm not the CEO, that's my co-founder. However, part of the board, and we make the decisions many times together, or most of the times together. And then, so building would be probably the most important part for me. Like if this is ever done, like again, I'm gonna start a new company, and I like the grind from when we started. In 3.5 years, we grew from like nothing to around $5-6 million in revenue right now. We were the second fastest growing company in whole Central Europe last year, tech company. So the grind is something that I really like about it. I am responsible for sales. There are certain aspects of sales I really don't like, others that I like. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything, I would say.
Yeah. I think sometimes people look at like founders and they think, oh, this is fun. And they see like when they're like a Mark Cuban type person where they're billionaires or whatever, and not the grindy part. You have to kind of love the grind, I think, like what you're saying. Because that's like 99% of what you're going to do. But people don't see that part. From a mental health standpoint, is there anything you do just to make sure you don't get burnt out so you can keep going through it? It might just be like a characteristic of yourself to not, you just keep going. But is there anything you do? Any strategies?
It's definitely not my characteristic that I can just keep going. I mean, I'm not very good at that, to be honest. So, so for example, right now I'm in a state where I'm trying to get my like health back together. To the extent where for the past year, for example, I was just constantly working and not taking care of like either my body or my mind. What works best for me, it's always those cycles when I just like completely like go over the too much, and then just get calm a little bit and resurface again strong enough. For me, I think that like doing sport is incredibly important. So I tend to do sport every day, although I hurt my back recently, so I can't, but I tend to do sport every day. It was the best thing for me. Then meditation as well, although I haven't done it for like a year, so I need to get back to it. Like mindfulness, that helps a lot. And then, I think those two things. So sport and meditation worked for me the best. And then I'm also trying to actually, I'm realizing that the easy ways of relaxing the mind, such as like going on social media or like watching. I used to watch Netflix a lot, and I still watch Netflix a lot. Is not actually positive, and it's not relaxing that much. If you do it for longer periods of time without like other complementary stuff.
Yeah, there was once I went through a week and I just wrote down like a positive or negative next to. I think I had a neutral sign. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just a slash. It was a while ago, and I just like went through like my days, like what took energy away, what gave it back. And typically, you would think, yeah, watching a video or whatever. For people watching and listening, I appreciate you. But wherever you are in life, I assume it's probably like to work and stuff. But like the doing that a lot actually does not put energy into you. Some people, I think it does. Like this is just for me personally, but like usually like reading a book or like doing other things that like take a little bit. Like it's almost like oxymoronic in the sense like it's like you wouldn't think putting energy out would get you more energy. You think like stasis, like watching a video, like relaxing, having a nice time, would then recharge you, but you're actually not. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, reading a book, doing something mindfulness or exercising, even though you're expending energy. So it seems like it would be the opposite. You'd be more tired at the end of it. You have more energy, which is like really weird. But that I like went through an entire week, and yeah, it's very true. Like videos and stuff they don't work the way they think intrinsically they would work.
Exactly, and like it definitely has to do something with dopamine and like other like neuroscience. When you just like watch reels all the time, I feel like I extinguished my dopamine levels completely, and now I'm just too lazy to do anything. And the same applies to like watching a series, right? Like if you watch 3 in a row, I'm like so tired. I don't know. It's hard for me to get out of the sofa and start doing something. Whereas again, like if you do something active, it actually like gives you more energy. So that's like the key learning that I had in the like past two years, maybe, that I never was under so much sort of working pressure where sometimes it's like 12 hours a day or more. And I never realized like the impact that those small things can have on me.
Yeah. I'm doing research and guinea pigging about a dozen people on a book that I'm writing that it involves dopamine. And one thing that seems to like really get people to open their eyes to this is how much how much of your day is dedicated to just like quick dopamine fixes, and then like as a percentage, like most people like disturbingly are like 90 plus if you think about it, like in terms of like just like quick like a silly Netflix show or whatever, something that doesn't educate you or make your life better. And then I asked the next question of, as a percentage, like how close are you to your objective that you want for yourself this week? Like if you were to measure it. And so people usually say that like at the beginning they're at like 97 or 95%. And I'm surprised at how functional these people are. 95% dopamine easy hits. And they're like, well, I move the bar like 1 to 5% forward a week. And it's like, yes. And do you ever feel good about that? Like, you're probably probably doesn't feel very good. It's probably really hard for you to concentrate on all these things. It's like, yeah, actually, now that you point that out, that is that way. It's like, yeah, now try to cut dopamine in half and see what you do. And like usually within like 2 weeks, they start being really productive. Like even like I'm doing research on this, so it's really interesting to hear another anecdotal evidence that if you like modulate your dopamine and how you like stress it or whatever, it's like really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I think you are right. And I just recently started playing with this because I didn't care essentially. Before I was just like, I'm under too much pressure. I'm just constantly working. I don't care how I spend my free time. Obviously, just do sport because I know that this makes me feel good. But like now I need to do something because I really feel the difference. And I'm not even talking about like alcohol and like other stuff that can very quickly relax you. I think this has also a huge effect on how you can perform.
Yeah. And then I think it's a multi-variable thing, and it's a little bit like, I imagine there's probably like some element of the population that can like there's like their genetic abnormalities or whatever, where they don't have the problem with like videos or whatever. They're just like the same as anything else. Maybe it's like the new generation is like they can like stand it and like us cannot. What sport do you play?
I actually, when I was a kid, I played like football and water polo and stuff, but it was mostly individual sports. So I was running almost every day, going to the gym.
Okay.
Running, going to the gym. That was mostly my, and again, like the stuff that, I need to sweat. And so where I sweat and where I like really destroy myself, that's when I seems to recharge my mind. So that was the main goal.
Yeah, and football means soccer, right? It doesn't mean like
Soccer.
okay, just to
No,
be
no, no,
clear.
no.
Like, yeah, I'm an American, so we have like different names for these things. And
Yes.
the episode that was released yesterday on the show, Nick Goldner, we were talking about like cancer resistance and stuff. At one point in time, I offered like to just like chase him around and attack him if he doesn't exercise. And it seems like there could be a service where like CEOs or like leaders of a company that don't like maybe struggle taking care of themselves, that these like ninja people could just like hunt them randomly. And if like at a certain ratio of you not doing it, they just randomly start attacking you, and it doesn't stop until like it goes below. That'd be like a really fun way to solve that problem. If anyone does that, I would love to have an interview with you. But I think that would be fun. And then you said that you're transitioning into AI and into a different direction. What is that? Tell us about that.
So I think that many agencies had huge problems in the past year when the market crashed and the startups started to having problems. Also, what happened on the market was that suddenly there's so many players. Everyone is trying to get their piece of the cake and doubling down on sales with less money on the market, like a typical sort of market problem. Plus, what happened is that with the AI coming to the scene, it's becoming easier and easier to like release your own prototypes, release your own MVPs. So as a result, like the company started essentially dying, like laying off people in hundreds, and we could also see that there was almost no business. It was incredibly hard to get projects. While we were fully booked out last year, this year we had quite a lot of people on the bench. We didn't have to lay off anyone, but like we scratched the surface, I would say. And we also realized that long term, we want to keep doing what we are doing with the startups because it's simply what most of the people working for us are passionate about and what we are passionate about. But we also need to find something new that will be more business savvy, I would say, for the company, that will allow the company to grow at the same extent as it was growing until now. And what came to our mind as we were thinking about so many different things. One was even like, let's build a product, let's build a few products, and let's invest the money into like new startups that we'll own. And, we have the engineering, all that kind of stuff. So different business models. And after talking to a lot of people, we decided that we are going to do AI transformation for low tech maturity, small and medium-sized companies. What it means is that there's this incredible amount of companies on the market that are more traditional, typical businesses that are really ripe for disruption. But even though the technology for them to be able to disrupt themselves was available for the past like 10 years, because it's nothing new on the, except for the Gen AI tools, like it's still the old AI, it's still the old technology, but businesses were not that incentivized to do something. Now with the chat GPT and with this whole hype that is going to stay there, I believe, about AI that is happening right now, the shareholders of the large corporates are pushing them to innovate, to use AI. Everyone needs to use AI. The investors are investing a lot into AI products. Private equity companies are investing a lot more into companies that have something to do with AI. And this pushed this whole, that's my assumption, this pushed this whole middle market into investing into that, and they are really ripe for disruption. So what we want to do is that we're already doing that with several companies. We created a completely new department, AI department / business consulting department, like transformation department. We enter into the company very quickly. Within like a month or two, we understand the key value drivers. So for example, for an advertising company, it can be how quickly let's say it's a company that creates ads and creative, ads or films or whatever, how quickly they can iterate and how quickly they can release like a final version of the ad. And now there's a lot of Gen AI tools on the market, but nobody knows, sorry, there's the second thing that I forgot to say. Everyone wants to do the AI thing, but nobody knows what it is. And especially nobody knows what's happening on the market, because every single month you have new and new products flowing the market. We know that because we have this whole community of founders. I run podcasts, we run events in San Francisco, and we are meeting like hundreds of founders every year. So we know what's happening on the market, and we have like very clearly understand and have like the map of all the products that are there. So we come into the company, understand the key value drivers, and then suggest the value driver can be the speed of releasing the ad for the creative studio, or for a beauty care company, it might be, how to better target our customers to do more efficient sales. But we have never been collecting the data, and we have never analyzed the data. And then we suggest like the improvements, and the improvements are normally some use of data science, some use of AI, some use of digital product building. And what's good about this is that the other two departments that we had so far are very complementary. Most of the AI innovation will end up being a digital product. And because we can build the product, design the product, and build the product in a way that target users like it, we just need this one department, this new department, and we can do it very easily. And I think we are able to transform the SMEs. And we've been doing that for the past maybe like 4 or 5 months, just like sort of iterating, and we already have customers there.
How are they liking it? It seems like you got the buzzword, you have like the idea that people are going to want to explore it, and you have the branding and the recognition of being in your industry for 3 or X years, 3 or 4 years. So then how are people responding to you guys helping them out in that way with this new added part?
I think like very well, again, because it has become a buzzword. And if you really know how to deliver, and that comes back to the talent that we can hire, like we can hire PhDs that were working in somewhere lost at IBM Slovakia or like Czech Republic, that really know how to do their job for the fraction of cost of what it would cost to hire somebody like that in the US. I think most of them like it. It brings a lot of value. I think right now the challenge for us is to be able to better define the client segment, because we're a little bit struggling with sales to the extent where you can essentially do this for the whole world, for the small and medium-sized enterprises, and we don't know where to focus right now. we have a client from like a beauty care industry, then from creative and entertainment. Another one is like an insurance company. We added value everywhere, and it was a great collaboration. But now we need to like figure out where to focus really on what segment, what industry.
Yeah. I wonder who needs it most. I wonder who needs it most and would pay you the most. I suppose is like the great ratio, like the biggest improvement that you can come in at the same time has the pockets to appreciate you accordingly.
Exactly. But it's also a question of even the company size is a problem, because if you come to an enterprise, they're like, it's very hard to implement. It's completely different sales. It's also like, you need to convince like tens of people to like even, and then you need to change the whole company. If you are automating an important workflow, it's very hard. So, but then they have the most money, and then you can do the biggest impact. Whereas for like a mid-market, it might be easier. But again, like, are you going for advertisement, for entertainment? Are you going for drinks producers? I think this is the key moment for many companies, because you can waste a lot of time to just somehow find the right space for you. And over time, and another problem there is, and that's why many companies offer it, but they don't succeed very well, is that everyone is very general. When you enter a new space and you come to a company, well, we'll figure out what we can do for you. No, it's not the best offer. Over time, you should just get more and more clients from the industry, actually build that industry expertise, and come already with like a clear business value proposition.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Anytime you can be specific, especially if you're reaching out to someone new, the better it is.
Yeah.
Especially if, like you're saying at the beginning of our conversation, if you're at the point where you're saying to them, what they would say if you were having a conversation, that makes it easier. It's like, oh, I have the problem. I have the problem. Like this sounds like an issue I'm having. It's basically like a slam dunk. It makes everything easier.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about product market fit, and I think this is a good parallel to ask about how to know when you have it, because that's essentially what we're talking about here. How do you know when this service has a product market fit, or like I guess service market fit? How do you know when you have it? I think a lot of people feel like it's like a very like artsy thing, but I feel like there's like there are ways to know when you've achieved it from like a data, textual feedback, etc.
I think there are like various ways, like typical ways how to measure product market fit in the product companies, but it's a completely new, like a completely different debate. In terms of what we are doing and how to measure service market fit, we haven't really thought about it that conceptually yet, because we were in the space where it worked for us very well, and we didn't have to think about a new space. And it's been just the last 5 months. But I guess the way how we look at it is that it's mostly about your sales results. So not even the amount of revenue that you can get, because it takes some time to get to the revenue. But like if you properly measure your sales process, then you already see like how people are reacting to different ideas. So from the very first moment of like cold reach out, how much calls are you getting? Then how many people you can get into proposal process. You can also you can conduct like qualitative user interviews. So we try to talk a lot of experts from the industries and try to sort of in a structured way ask them, hey, would this be interesting? How much you would pay for it, and all that kind of stuff. But we are new in that space as well. And from everything that I've heard so far, like this seems to be the right direction. And the market is very well receiving the offering.
Yeah. So it sounds like based on your timelines for a product that by sometime by the end of the year, you'd know, like be able to drill down and like know which segment you're going to go into. And then next year, sounds like you'd be just hitting that segment and providing a lot of value then.
Exactly. We would like to achieve similar growth in revenue than we had last year's. So it was around like 140% in growth or 150% in revenue growth. So right now we are at like $5 to $6 million. We'll see what happens, and then hopefully we can get to. No, it won't be able to. We will not be able to do 150% for sure. I hopefully will be able to get to like 9-10 by the end of 2024. The reason why I'm saying this, and I forgot completely, is that we were like, it's achievable. The problem is that in terms of we have decided at some point that we don't want to grow that much people wise, because you are selling essentially people's time, and it was already hard to grow from like in 1 year from like 40 to 100 people. We wouldn't like to go from 100 to 200. Obviously, you can increase the prices, but ideally, we would really push on the margins and on the prices rather than just necessarily like now hiring another 150 people next year.
Yeah, I think the hiring at that big of a rapid rate, the potential for an asshole to slip in goes up significantly. Yeah. And then I always wonder, like, is there like a system or process you can put in to like find the jerks once they're in the company? Now that's not to say like don't disagree with people or whatever, like, but there's a difference between being a real jerk, you know, and someone who's like, hey, Joseph, I disagree with you on this thing. I think we should go left versus right, and having a conversation about it. Like that's a different thing. I think sometimes people feel like, yeah, I think sometimes people conflate the two. But yeah, so it makes sense to me in terms of like wanting to limit where you are. I think you, when you were at Cambridge, you did like an AI versus lawyer challenge. If I've like found the right you, okay, good. Do you think you would still? Do you think the outcome would be the same if you were to do the challenge again with like the updating of AI and related tools? Because I think that was in 2017. It's 2023. I almost forgot what year it is. Do you think the outcome would be the same?
I think the outcome would be even better than it was before. It's a again like completely new debate. There are many now players. We're I think first in the world to do that. Now there are many other players that are getting into the market and they are trying to like build predictive system for lawyers. The key problem always was the data and the access to data. Like most of the jurisdictions are not in any way producing legal data. Probably like US and UK are the best. Then like paradoxically Central Europe. But even like with all the data that was available publicly and that we could get our hands on, we never were able to create systems that would achieve us to get like a large portion of the market. But in terms of your question, that challenge that was on a particular data set that was large enough and also very simple problems, but that was simple problems also for the lawyers. We wanted to get like lawyers, you know, because we get like 140, if I don't remember, the one from best law firms in London. I think it would be even better in terms of the result.
Yeah, I was reading that. I was like, oh, that'd be fun to replicate it and see, because people are literally negotiating contracts with ChatGPT and like related barter, etc. And which is funny and good for them, because you know a big problem that people had is that that I've been reading about is that sometimes it's like a big corporation that has the money to afford a lawyer who can be very strategic in how they speak to you. And now it's like, hey, we have the ability to have the same thing, and now there's a level playing field of finding like a fair, for negotiations or for finding a house or any of these different things, which is just fantastic. You don't need to be wealthy anymore to get a good deal. You just have to ask the right questions, which is pretty cool.
Yes. I'm not sure, to be honest, like how much you can trust ChatGPT in those negotiations, but like for sure, in terms of like being able to formulate like basic arguments and get access to data, that helped a lot for sure.
Yeah. And then I'm always looking for books to read. Are you do you have time for books, I guess? And then are you reading anything that you recommend I check out?
So not much. I haven't been reading much in the past like 2 to 3 years. I mean, obviously the best books that I would recommend are the classics. You know, for example, for negotiation, Never Split the Difference. I forgot the author. Yeah.
Chris Voss or something like that.
Yeah. Or then for habits, like The Power of Habits. Again, forgot the author. And then I've been recently reading. So most of what I'm reading, except for like really trying to be better in sales and articles and like very company related stuff, it's mostly fantasy. So recently, and I think I saw it actually on your LinkedIn profile as well. I started this like 2 weeks ago. I started reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And it's a great book. It's a great book. I'm like somewhere in the middle of the first book. Again, but like before sleep, like instead of Netflix, I try to read that. So not the biggest book reader in the past 3 years, but it seems like we have a very similar preference.
Yeah, Brandon Sanderson's one of my favorite authors. There's a year of Brandon Sanderson that's for this year where he wrote during COVID 4 books and didn't tell anyone about it. then did a Kickstarter where it raised $40 million and for all these books and stuff. And so like every quarter we get like a new book, and they're pretty wild. But yeah, Way of Kings is arguably probably his best work. It's pretty. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to spoil it because you're like in it,
Yeah.
and that'd be terrible. But just for like my own fun, are there characters you're identifying with or liking in particular? I won't tell you if
Which
they die.
characters?
Yes.
Okay, just don't tell me.
Yeah, I won't tell you.
Like, probably for me, the most sympathetic one is Kaladin.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. For people who don't know, Kaladin, like we meet him, he's literally a slave and getting beat down all the time. And like there's like that meme of the Peanuts. I don't know if you're familiar, where there's like Lucy and there's like football, and like he's coming to kick the football and always gets taken away, and that's like Kaladin's mental health. Like whenever he thinks he's gonna achieve something. Yeah.
It's really sympathetic. Like with this one feels. I always feel better when reading about his fate.
Yeah. I'd be curious to hear what you think when you're by the end of it, because we're like it's like gonna be 10 books, but we're on book 4, book 5 I think is coming out next year. So you're in a good time to take your time, and by the time you're caught up, there'll be a whole new book, which is fantastic. And then there's gonna be a time skip. You also are into. I'm gonna send some fantasy books your way, but I think Sanderson, if you read like a chapter a day, you're good for the next 10 years. You have a podcast as well. I think you're at episode 7. What about it is unique? Why are you doing this? Why people should check it out, essentially?
So it's also like a very new idea and test for us. Like we try to build community around. Our sales is pretty much community driven, meaning that most of the deals that we get and leads that we get are coming from referrals, and those referrals are either from our people that have worked with us or from our friends, essentially people that know our work and are somehow in our community. So the idea of the podcast is to really provide additional source of information and also source of credibility, so that people see like what people we work with. And every month essentially we'll see like maybe it's gonna be a lot more frequent. I'll be interviewing like the most interesting people that I meet, or the most interesting people that were our clients or our partners. And the idea is that in the beginning we were focusing on like a general founder story and story of the entrepreneur and talking about general stuff. Now we want to focus more on the one topic and on the expert on one topic. For example, like the next episode is going to be with the CEO of a company called Cosmic Latte, and it's a like company that owns several LGBTQ dating apps, and that guy knows everything about dating and about gay dating. It's so fascinating, like the whole market and the tech in dating. So those will be the topics that I'm trying to go for. And again, it's very similar to this, except that it's a little bit more interview like. So it's a little bit shorter and a little bit more interview like. I like to get the most interesting parts. So essentially, like I always look at the guest and then see essentially 3 things that I want to talk about. And so it's a little bit shorter, but it requires a lot more preparation at the same time before that, so that it works. Still working and playing with the concept. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
But you are the podcaster. You've done so many episodes. Why you do that?
Why I do it? Well, it's just fun. I like to learn. Like I love learning. And so it's just my excuse to learn and then help other people through learning. I mean, there's lots of stuff that we talked about today that I know several people that are in my